We have more breaking news, this time out of the Philadelphia Flyers organization. Head coach Alain Vigneault has been relieved of his duties. We'll discuss what this means for the team and who's taking over coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some breaking news from the Flyers organization. Obviously, this team has been struggling. There's been a lot of talk about potentially coaching changes being made, and now we have one. Alain Vigneault, who has been fired from his head coaching position, along with assistant coach Michel Terrien. Of course, Terrien and Vigneault, longtime friends, coached against each other and together at various times and various levels across the leagues, and including the NHL here. Now, of course, the Flyers are off to a dismal start. They're in second last place in their division, only slightly ahead of the mightily struggling New York Islanders, who another team we didn't expect to be in the position they are. We saw GM Chuck Fletcher make some decent moves, or at least what looked to be some significant changes in the offseason, and this team is really no further ahead, still incredibly inconsistent. Carter Hart, who was a big part of the issue last year, seems to be bounced back and playing relatively well. They've even had some decent outings from Martin Jones, so goaltending really hasn't been a big part of the problem like it was before. The blue line now, however, is still pretty much a major issue. Now, we can't really fault Ryan Ellis, who's been out injured. He's only played in 4 games for the Flyers this year. It was going to be a big part of the blue line being, improved for sure, but that hasn't happened. But of course, Ellis's absence has not helped matters at all. Of course, they started the year without, top 6 center Kevin Hayes. Of course, Hayes was battling an injury, needed surgery, as well as coping with the loss of his brother Jimmy, who, unexpectedly died at a young age as well. So Hayes has had a lot going on. He came back for a while, then he was out re-injured. So he's missed, a significant period of time. So those 2 players being out has certainly been, a factor for sure. However, even with those guys out of the lineup, this team, at least on paper, looks like it should be performing at a higher level. The blue line is generating almost no offense, which is certainly a major issue as well. And like I said, something had to give. Now, there was some speculation on whether or not the Flyers would go down this road, given the fact that Vigneault has such an expensive contract. We know that NHL teams obviously lost a lot of money during the work stoppage when the early part of the pandemic. They haven't had fans in attendance at 100% capacity for very long now, so there's certainly a lot of lost revenue that way as well. And it's been tough. A lot of teams have certainly not made the money they're used to over the past couple of years. So when you have a guy like Vigneault who signed like a 5-year contract at $5 million a year, that's a lot of money to choke down to pay him to not work for you anymore. So ultimately, Vigneault still has 2.5 years left on that contract. So that's a big deal. Now, I would imagine for GM Chuck Fletcher to get the blessing from ownership to relieve him of his duties is certainly not going to be looking too good on him. He's the one, obviously, who hired Vigneault and gave him that contract. So you have to wonder if Chuck might be on thin ice too. Now, for right now, Mike Yeo takes over as head coach. Of course, he's already in the organization. This is only an interim basis. He has previous head coaching experience, so it's difficult to say exactly when they'll go down a permanent road. But Yeo will be behind the bench when they take on the Avalanche here, which I believe is tonight in the next game. They're on a back-to-back right now after another not so good loss yesterday. So there is already some rumors out there and some speculation that Rick Tocchet might end up being the next head coach of the Flyers. Of course, former head coach of the Coyotes. He's been an assistant coach around numerous NHL teams. He was also head coach before that, way back in Tampa years ago. Right now, he's currently working in television on the media side, and certainly was open to getting another head coaching role. I guess the only reason he went the media route instead of coaching route, he was offered a high-paying assistant coaching job, but wanted to kind of hold off and see what he could do for head coaching positions in the future. And of course, he's a former Flyer. I think he'd be a good fit there. So we'll see where this goes and if he becomes the next head coach or how long they leave Mike Yeo in charge with an interim tag. But obviously, after the dismal start we've seen around the league, we've seen teams cleaning house. The Habs have done it at the executive level. The Canucks just did it last night at the executive and coaching level. And now we have the Flyers removing a couple of coaches off their staff as well. So certainly, you have to wonder too. I obviously can't prove anything here. This is just a theory that was mentioned to me, and to me, I thought it kind of made sense. Is if you remember back earlier this season when Robin Lehner made several comments talking about a lot of different things around. He's been very vocal when it comes to mental health and different things going on around the league that he was trying to be vocal against. And one of the things he said is he had some not so good things to say about Alain Vigneault. He made it sound like, originally, at least some people interpreted, that he was insinuating that Alain Vigneault was kind of pushing drugs on the players for like pain meds and stuff. That's not what he meant, because it was in the same kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, but his Twitter rant where he was talking about different drugs in the NHL, pain management, and those types of things that were given out way too liberally, that he was speaking out against. But he made on to say that Vigneault doesn't treat people well, and Vigneault had to address those allegations later, and things kind of seemed to go downhill after that. So obviously one person's words isn't going to necessarily lead to another team's change of play or whatever, but it just seems to be kind of coincided here that the Flyers, even though they started decently, that things kind of have gone all downhill ever since he spoke out and made those remarks about Vigneault. Could there be something to this? Maybe the players wanted to change. I really don't know. It just seems to coincide well. And like I said, there's no proof at all. It's just a theory that I thought kind of had some made sense, but we'll see. Let me know your thoughts on this firing here by the Philadelphia Flyers. Is Rick Tocchet likely the next head coach? Will they leave interim tag on Yo for the rest of the year? Let me know what your thoughts are. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.